The first time my daughter told a room full of people that I was losing my memory, I was standing 6 feet behind her, holding my own birthday cake. There were 74 candles on it, one for every year I had actually lived. The banner said 75 because my children had moved the party 2 months early. Apparently Oak Haven's dining room was available that night, but my birthday was not. I found that funny. Sharon did not. She was at the microphone, smiling with the careful patience people use around frightened children and difficult old men. "Dad has had a few confusing episodes," she said. "Nothing alarming. But after many loving family discussions, we've helped him decide that it's time for a safer new chapter." The room went quiet in the wrong way. Not shocked. Polite. On the screen behind her was a photograph of my red brick house beneath the words, "A Farewell to Mercer House." I looked at my son, Kevin. He would not meet my eyes. My granddaughter Emma was staring at the screen as if it had insulted her personally. At the back of the room, my friend Morris Bell had stopped chewing. Sharon went on. She explained that I would move into Oak Haven before Thanksgiving. She said the house was in the process of being transferred. She thanked Kevin for handling the difficult details. Then she invited everyone to applaud my courage. They did. That was the part that hurt most. 40 people applauded a decision I had never made. I set the cake on a side table. In my jacket pocket was an envelope containing a doctor's assessment, a letter from my bank, and a photograph of my missing house keys inside Kevin's coat pocket. I had spent 5 weeks gathering those things. But the envelope was not the only surprise in that room. Kevin had one of his own waiting on the next slide, and when I saw it, I finally understood why my children had worked so hard to make me doubt my own mind. My name is Leonard Mercer. Most people call me Lenny, although my wife, June, called me Leonard whenever I had tracked mud through the kitchen or attempted plumbing without shutting off the water. I was 74 when this happened. June and I had been married 49 years, 7 months, and 11 days when she died. I do not usually count the 11 days. It sounds theatrical. But grief turns ordinary people into accountants. You count birthdays, empty chairs, coffee cups, and the number of times you reach across the bed before remembering there is no one there. We lived in Bellwether, Ohio, in a brick Cape Cod we bought in 1976. The kitchen was too small, the upstairs was too hot, and one of the basement steps complained whenever anyone heavier than a house cat used it. June loved every inconvenient inch. I repaired home appliances for nearly 40 years. Washers, dryers, refrigerators, ovens, the machines people curse only after they stop working. I owned a little shop called Mercer Appliance Service, though calling it a shop was generous. It was 2 bays, a desk, and a coffee machine that produced something legally adjacent to coffee. Kevin worked beside me during summers. Sharon handled the phone after school. June kept the books and kept the rest of us from promising 3 customers the same Tuesday morning. We were not wealthy, but the mortgage was paid, the children went to college, and most winters we could afford to complain about taxes from somewhere warmer than Ohio. After June died, the house changed its sound. Every clock seemed louder. The furnace clicked like someone opening a door. For 3 months I ate supper in front of the television because sitting at the kitchen table felt like reporting for a meeting no one else planned to attend. Then a woman from church called about a broken lamp. Her name was Dolores Finch. She was 82, recently widowed, and certain the lamp was older than I was. She was wrong by 6 years, but I fixed it anyway. When she tried to pay me, I told her to bring a pie to the church basement on Thursday. Morris heard about it and brought a toaster. Not his toaster. He simply wanted something to fix. By the 3rd Thursday, we had 2 folding tables, 7 lamps, a vacuum cleaner, and a 12-year-old boy named Caleb who wanted to learn why motors sparked. That became the Thursday repair table. Every week, people brought small things that had stopped working. We repaired what we could and explained what we could not. Nobody paid. Some brought cookies. One man brought turnips for 6 straight weeks, which may explain why we eventually wrote no payment necessary on the sign. The repair table saved me in a way I did not understand at first. It gave Thursday a shape. It put voices around me. It let my hands remember that they were useful even when the rest of me felt misplaced. Sharon approved in the beginning. "It gets you out of the house," she said. That phrase bothered me, though I could not have said why. People had started talking about my life as if the house were a waiting room and any activity outside it was treatment. Still, Sharon was a good daughter. Organized, loyal, and prepared for emergencies that had not yet considered happening. She supervised billing at a regional hospital. Her purse contained pain relievers, safety pins, 2 charging cables, and at least one snack with an expiration date beyond my own reasonable expectations. Kevin was different. He could enter a room carrying bad news and make you feel rude for noticing. At 47, he owned a kitchen remodeling company called Mercer Renewal. He had June's easy smile and my unfortunate belief that every problem could be solved with the right tool. Business had been uneven for him. I knew that. What I did not know was how uneven. Emma was Sharon's daughter, 19 years old, studying digital media at the community college. She had June's habit of tilting her head when someone told a lie, as if trying to hear the truth trapped behind it. Emma volunteered at the repair table and made us a website. She also replaced our handwritten intake cards with a tablet, causing Morris to threaten retirement from a position that did not pay him. For almost 2 years after June's death, that was my life. Quiet mornings. Thursday repairs. Sunday dinners rotating between Sharon's and Kevin's houses. A phone call from Emma every few days. It was smaller than the life I had before, but it was mine. Then I left a kettle on. It was not on the stove. It was an electric kettle on the counter. I filled it, pressed the switch, and went outside because the garbage truck had dropped half my recycling in the street. By the time I returned, the kettle had boiled and shut itself off, exactly as it was designed to do. Sharon arrived while I was picking up cans. "You left something cooking?" she asked. "Water," I said. "A dangerous recipe." She did not laugh. That Sunday she brought me a glossy brochure from Oak Haven. "Just information," she said. "So is the phone book. I don't plan to live in that either." She sighed. "Dad, can we have one serious conversation?" "We can have several. We don't have to have this one." I thought that ended it. I did not know that Sharon had already toured Oak Haven. I did not know Kevin had gone with her. And I certainly did not know they had written a check from my account to reserve a room. I learned that from a stranger 3 weeks later. The first thing to disappear was my blue ledger. June had started it the year we bought the house. It contained repair dates, insurance numbers, paint colors, appliance serial numbers, and 48 years of notes written in 2 kinds of handwriting. Mine leaned downhill. Hers stood straight and narrow, like schoolchildren waiting for inspection. The ledger lived in the second drawer of the dining room cabinet. It had lived there longer than Kevin had owned a razor. One Tuesday, it was gone. I checked the cabinet, desk, kitchen shelves, workshop, and the small table by my chair. Then I checked them again, because looking twice is what human beings do before admitting an object has defeated them. That evening I called Sharon. "Have you borrowed the blue house ledger?" There was a pause. "No." "Why?" "It isn't where we keep it." "Where you keep it?" The correction landed softly, but I felt it. "Yes," I said. "Where I keep it." "Maybe you moved it." "Maybe. I'm asking whether you did." I said no, Dad. Her voice softened. "Try not to get upset. Things turn up." 2 days later, it did. The ledger was on my workbench beneath a folded shop towel. I had already looked there. I knew I had. Yet there it sat, wearing a thin coat of dust as if it had been innocent all along. I opened it and found a white corner sticking from the back pocket. It was a receipt from Bellwether Copy and Print, dated Wednesday afternoon. 26 color copies, oversized. I had not been to Bellwether Copy and Print in 4 years. When I showed the receipt to Kevin, he shrugged. "Probably got mixed in with Mom's old papers. It was printed yesterday." He glanced at it again. "Then maybe Emma used the ledger for some project." That answer was clever because it offered me a person I trusted and a reason too vague to disprove. I asked Emma the next time I saw her. She tilted her head. "I haven't touched that book since Grandma showed me the note about the pear tree." The pear tree had been planted after Sharon was born. June had written, "Tree cost $4. Leonard says it will never produce fruit." Leonard is often confident immediately before being wrong. Emma smiled at the note, then looked serious. "Grandpa, why would Uncle Kevin think I had it?" "He didn't say he thought you had it. He said maybe." "That's what people say when they want you to finish the life for them." I told her not to make trouble. At 74, you can still make the mistake of believing silence keeps a family peaceful. Sometimes silence only gives the least honest person more room. The following week, I missed a cardiology appointment. I had written Thursday at 10 on the calendar beside the refrigerator. The office insisted the appointment had been Wednesday. Sharon said she had told me twice. You even repeated it back to me, she said. I had no memory of that conversation. That frightened me more than the ledger. There are moments when age seems to enter the room before you do. You forget a name, misplace a receipt, walk into the garage without remembering why, and some quiet part of you begins taking inventory. Is this ordinary? Is this the beginning of something? Would I know if I were changing? June's mother had developed dementia in her late 70s. Sharon remembered the worst years. So did I. I stood in my kitchen with the phone in my hand and wondered whether my daughter was right. That was when the real damage began. Not when my children moved money or copied documents. It began when their certainty became louder than my own memory. I started leaving notes for myself. Kettle off. Back door locked. Medicine taken. I photographed the stove before bed. I wrote the date on the newspaper. I did not tell anyone. For 10 days, nothing unusual happened. Then my house keys vanished on a Sunday morning. I searched for 40 minutes. I emptied coat pockets, lifted sofa cushions, checked the refrigerator, and stared at the bathroom cabinet long enough to resent it. Finally, I called Sharon to say I would be late for dinner. She and Kevin arrived together. This is exactly what we're worried about, Sharon said while she searched the kitchen. Losing keys is not a diagnosis. No, but it's a pattern. Kevin opened drawers quickly, performing concern. When did you last drive? Friday. You sure? I looked at him. Yes. He raised both hands. Just asking. They found nothing. Kevin drove us to Sharon's house, and I sat in the back seat of my son's truck like luggage requiring supervision. During dinner, Sharon and Kevin discussed motion sensors, medication organizers, and a driving evaluation. They spoke across me instead of to me. Emma finally put down her fork. Grandpa is sitting right here. We know, Sharon said. Then why does everyone sound like he left? Nobody answered. After dinner, Kevin asked me to get his reading glasses from his coat. It was hanging in the hall closet. I reached into the inside pocket. My fingers closed around a familiar brass ring. 3 house keys. 1 workshop key. A small red tag June had made from plastic because I once locked myself out in January. My keys. I stood in the narrow hallway listening to my family clear dishes in the next room. For several seconds, I could not move. Relief came first. I had not lost them. Then confusion. Then something colder. I took out my phone and photographed the keys inside Kevin's coat pocket. I photographed the coat hanging in Sharon's closet. Then I returned everything exactly as I found it. When I walked back into the dining room, Kevin was telling a story about a client who changed her mind halfway through a kitchen remodel. He smiled at me. Find the glasses? No, I said. But I found what I needed. He stopped smiling for half a second. It was enough. I did not confront Kevin that night. That decision has puzzled some people when I tell this story. They imagine that truth arrives like a trumpet and decent men immediately make speeches. In my experience, truth often arrives quietly, in a coat pocket, while someone in the next room asks whether there is any more pie. I needed to know how much of my fear belonged to age and how much had been placed there by someone else. When Kevin drove me home, my keys were hanging on a hook beside the kitchen door. Well, look at that, he said. Right where you left them. I studied his face. I wanted to ask when he had returned them. I wanted to hold up the photograph and force the evening into honesty. Instead, I said, apparently so. After he left, I locked the door and sat at the kitchen table beneath June's copper clock. My hands shook, not with frailty, but anger. It had been years since anyone had made me that angry. Anger at 74 feels different from anger at 40. You know how expensive it can become. You know a sentence spoken in 10 seconds can spend 20 years inside a family. So I made coffee and wrote down every strange event I could remember. The ledger disappeared after Kevin had come to measure my basement windows, supposedly to replace one as a birthday gift. The copied pages included the deed information and maintenance history. My appointment changed after Sharon began managing the family calendar on her phone. My keys vanished on a morning when Kevin knew I was expected at dinner. 2 utility bills had gone unpaid even though I was certain I mailed them. Both envelopes later appeared in a pile Sharon said she found beneath a magazine. None of that proved a plan. Together, however, the incidents no longer looked like forgetfulness. They looked like rehearsal. The next morning I called Dr. Arun Patel, my family physician of 21 years. "I want my memory tested," I told him. "Any particular reason?" "My children have discovered aging and would like a second opinion." He gave me an appointment for Friday. The assessment took nearly 2 hours. There were questions, patterns, lists of words, a clock face to draw, and a series of tasks that made me feel as if I were applying for permission to remain myself. Dr. Patel also ordered blood work and reviewed my medicines. When it was over, he folded his hands. "Lenny, you have normal age-related lapses. Nothing today suggests cognitive impairment." I looked down at the floor. He waited. "That is good news," he said gently. "I know. You don't look relieved." "I am relieved about my mind. I'm less relieved about my family." I showed him the photograph of my keys. He took off his glasses, cleaned them, and looked again. Doctors clean their glasses when they need time to choose words. "Do Sharon or Kevin have authority over your finances?" "Sharon is a convenience signer on my checking account. We arranged it during my cataract surgery. I also signed a limited power of attorney for medical and bill-paying matters if I became unable to act." "Are you unable to act?" "You just made me subtract 7 from 100 until I nearly lost my patience. I think I can pay the electric bill." He smiled, then became serious. "Talk to your bank. And talk to an attorney who works with older clients. Not because you should panic. Because clarity is useful." He printed a summary of the evaluation and handed it to me. For 3 days, I carried that paper folded in my shirt pocket. I did not tell Sharon. I wanted to, especially when she called Saturday morning and asked whether I had remembered breakfast. But something in me had changed. For weeks I had been defending myself against individual accusations. The kettle. The ledger. The appointment. The keys. Each defense made me look more defensive. Each explanation became another thing my children could call confusion. I decided to stop explaining and start learning. On Monday I went to Bellwether Community Bank. A young employee offered to help me use the automated kiosk. I told him I had opened my first account there before his mother was born and would prefer a chair. The branch manager, Denise Walsh, had known June. She took me into her office and pulled up the account. "There was a cashier's check for $7,500 issued 6 weeks ago," she said. "Payable to Oak Haven Senior Community." The number sounded louder than it should have. "Who requested it?" She examined the record. "Sharon Ellis. She is listed as an authorized signer." "Was I notified?" "A notice was mailed to your address." I had never seen it. Denise printed the transaction. There was a memo line, "Unit reservation, Leonard Mercer." "Can I reverse it?" I asked. "The check has been deposited. We can contact Oak Haven and dispute the authorization, but because Ms. Ellis is a signer, it may be complicated." "Remove her access today." Denise hesitated. "Lenny, is anyone pressuring you?" The question embarrassed me. Not because she had asked, but because the honest answer was yes. "I am handling it," I said. She leaned forward. "Handling it can include accepting help." June would have liked that sentence. She had spent 49 years reminding me that accepting help and surrendering were not the same thing. Denise helped me open new accounts, move the funds, cancel the old checks, and document the disputed payment. She also gave me the name of an elder law attorney named Naomi Price. Before I left, she printed one more page. "Someone changed your account's mailing preference to paperless 2 months ago," she said. The confirmation went to Sharon's email. That explained the notices I had not received. It did not explain why my daughter believed she had the right. Oak Haven called the next afternoon. A woman named Patrice said they could return most of the reservation deposit, minus an administrative fee. She sounded startled when I told her I had never toured the property. "Mr. Mercer, your daughter said you attended virtually." "Then virtual me gets around more than I do." There was a pause at the other end. Patrice offered an in-person tour so I could understand the option. I almost refused. Then I decided information could not injure me. Oak Haven sat on 12 acres outside town. The lobby had a stone fireplace, fresh flowers, and chairs arranged in groups that no one was using. It was a fine place. That matters. My anger was never about senior living. Many people choose it and are happier for the choice. My anger was about being quietly enrolled in my own disappearance. Patrice showed me a one-bedroom unit with wide doors and a view of a pond. The carpet was beige. The walls were beige. Even the silence seemed beige. Your daughter preferred this location because it is close to the elevator, she said. My daughter has preferences for rooms she doesn't plan to occupy. Patrice gave me an uncomfortable smile. We passed a woman arranging a jigsaw puzzle in the lounge. She looked up and said, "You must be Leonard." I stopped. She had bright silver hair, purple eyeglass frames, and the direct gaze of someone who had outlived the need to flatter strangers. "Have we met?" I asked. "No. Your children showed me your picture." Patrice tried to move us along, but the woman continued. "They came twice. The son asked whether residents were allowed to leave without signing out." My throat tightened. "Did he?" I told him we're old, not parcels. Patrice closed her eyes briefly. The woman introduced herself as Margaret Lowe. She had moved to Oak Haven by choice after selling a 3-story house in Cleveland. "I like it here," she said. "But I signed my own papers." That was the entire argument in 8 words. Before I left, Patrice copied everything in my file. The application had Sharon's signature. A page titled Family Concerns listed wandering, missed medications, unsafe cooking, financial confusion, and episodes of agitation when corrected. I read that final phrase twice. In another context, it might have sounded responsible. On paper, it turned every reasonable protest into evidence against me. If I objected, I was agitated. If I said they were wrong, I was confused. It was a room with no door. At the bottom, beneath proposed source of payment, someone had typed, "Proceeds from sale of residence." "Who entered this?" I asked. Patrice checked the electronic record. Kevin Mercer provided the financial information. I drove straight to the church basement. Morris was alone, trying to repair a 1960s tabletop radio. He looked at my face and unplugged the soldering iron. "Who died?" he asked. "Nobody. Apparently I've just become inconvenient while alive." I told him everything. Morris had known me since our children were in grade school. He was not a man who rushed to comfort. He listened, rubbed one thumb along the edge of the work table, and asked practical questions. "You going to confront them?" "Eventually." "Why not now?" "Because I know what Sharon thinks she's doing. I don't know what Kevin is doing." "Selling your house, by the sound of it." "Selling it for what?" Morris looked at the row of lamps waiting for repair. "Money is usually trying to become something else," he said. "A debt paid. A secret covered. A person impressed." That Thursday, Kevin arrived at the repair table carrying donuts. He had never attended before. "Thought I'd see what the old man does all day," he said loudly. I watched him scan the basement. His gaze paused on the locked metal cabinet where we kept donated cash, replacement parts, and our property forms. Then he saw the sign Emma had made, "Thursday repair table, fixing small things before they become big problems." "This could be a real business," he said. "Mobile repair clinics. Sponsorships. Maybe a membership model. The membership requirement is having something broken." "I'm serious, Dad. You've built a brand without realizing it. We fix lamps. That's the service. I'm talking about the story." He walked around taking pictures with his phone. Morris looked at me from across the room. At noon, Kevin offered to bring lunch. While he was gone, I checked the cabinet. The papers were intact, but the spare key June had labeled in red ink was missing from its hook. I did not tell Morris. Instead, I moved every document to the church office and replaced them with an empty envelope. On the front I wrote, "Kevin, if you need something, ask." 3 days later, the envelope was gone. Kevin never mentioned it. That was the moment I knew we were no longer dealing with concern that had gone too far. Someone in my family had a plan. And 1 week later, Emma found the plan on a presentation she had been asked to improve. She came to my house on a rainy Wednesday evening with her laptop beneath her coat. "Mom thinks I'm at the library," she said. "Are you in danger of being arrested for visiting your grandfather?" "Grandpa, please." Her face stopped me. Emma was usually steady. That night her eyes were red, and she held the laptop as though it contained something hot. We sat at the kitchen table. I made tea. She did not touch hers. "Mom asked me to make a slideshow for your birthday," she said. She sent a folder of pictures and a draft Kevin made. "My birthday is 2 months away." They moved it up. Oak Haven had an opening in their dining room. I almost laughed. They had moved my birthday celebration to the place where they intended to move me. Emma opened the draft. The first slides were harmless: childhood photographs, my wedding to June, the children as babies, the appliance shop, family vacations. Then came a slide titled Leonard's Next Chapter. It showed Oak Haven. The next slide showed my house. At first I thought it was a recent photograph. Then I saw the new roofline. The pear tree was gone. The front porch had been widened, and 4 numbered doors faced the driveway. In the lower corner was Kevin's company logo. Mercer House, 4 furnished executive suites. A Mercer renewal property. The room tilted, not literally, but in the way familiar things become strange when you finally understand who has been measuring them. "Where did this come from?" I asked. "The file information says Uncle Kevin created it 6 weeks ago. There are budget pages too." She opened a spreadsheet. Purchase price. Renovation cost. Projected monthly revenue. Investor contribution. Under acquisition notes were 4 words: off-market family transfer preferred. The proposed purchase price was almost $100,000 below the estimate I had received the previous year. There was another line: equity from seller gift. "What does that mean?" Emma asked. "It means Kevin expects me to give him part of the house without calling it a gift." "Does Mom know?" I studied the slides. Sharon's name appeared on the Oak Haven arrangements. Kevin's on the property proposal. They were cooperating, but perhaps not telling each other the whole truth. That was a small hope, and I did not trust it. Emma wiped her cheek angrily. "I should have known." "No. You should not have to investigate your own family. They told me you wanted this. Mom said you were scared to admit it because moving made Grandma's death feel final." That sentence cut deeper than the financial pages. June's name had been used to explain my resistance, as if grief had made me unreasonable. "Did you believe her?" I asked. Emma looked ashamed. "For a while." "So did I." She looked up. I told her about the assessment, the bank transfer, the keys, and the Oak Haven application. With each fact, her expression changed from worry to anger. "We need to show everyone." "Not yet." "Why are you protecting them?" "I am protecting what comes after." At 19, Emma believed exposure and resolution were the same event. Many adults believe it too. "If I shame your mother in public before I understand what she did, she will defend herself instead of telling the truth. If I accuse Kevin before my accounts and property are secure, he may move faster. We do this in order." "What order?" "First, I make sure they can no longer decide anything for me. Then I give them a chance to tell me the truth. If they refuse, I tell mine." Emma turned the laptop toward me. "The birthday slideshow is in 3 weeks. "Then 3 weeks is what we have." She studied me for a moment, and some of the fear left her face. "You don't seem confused." "I'm confused about why anyone needs 4 doors on one house." She laughed in spite of herself. Before she left, she copied the files to a drive and gave it to me. I told her not to lie for me, not to access anyone's private account, and not to choose sides in conversations she had no business being forced into. "You already chose a side," she said. "Yes. Yours." After she drove away, I stood by the window watching the rain silver the driveway. For the first time since June died, I wished so strongly that she were there that I said her name aloud. June would have been furious. Not loud, she was rarely loud. Her anger made her quieter, which was much worse. But after the fury, she would have asked the question I had avoided. What did I want? Not what did I want to stop. Not what did I want to keep. What kind of life did I want next? I looked around the kitchen. The narrow counters. The worn table. The doorway marked with our children's heights. I loved that house. But I did not want to become its museum guard. That realization became the beginning of my own plan. Naomi Price's office was above a hardware store on Main Street. She was in her early 60s, wore red shoes, and had the useful habit of allowing silence to become uncomfortable for the other person. She reviewed my documents, Dr. Patel's letter, the bank records, the Oak Haven application, and Emma's copy of Kevin's proposal. "Your limited power of attorney can be revoked," she said. "Your daughter's bank access is already removed. The proposed property transfer cannot occur without your signature. Has anyone asked you to sign anything recently?" Kevin brought a folder to Sunday dinner. He said it was an updated insurance inventory. Naomi's mouth tightened. "Did you sign?" "No. June trained me never to sign papers while Gravy was present." Naomi almost smiled. "Good policy." She prepared a formal revocation and notices for the bank, Oak Haven, my insurance company, and the county property office. At my request, she also drew up a new estate plan. Sharon and Kevin would remain beneficiaries, but neither would control the estate. An independent trust company would handle it. That choice hurt. It felt like removing my own children's names from the emergency contact card of my life. Naomi seemed to understand. Protection does not have to be punishment, she said. You can love people without giving them the keys to every door. Keys, I had learned, were not symbolic when your son actually stole them. I changed the locks at the house. I changed every password. I arranged for my bills to be paid automatically, with paper statements still mailed to me. I completed a voluntary driving assessment and passed. I hired a handyman to install a second railing on the basement stairs and brighter lights in the hallway, not because Sharon demanded it, but because the hallway was dark and the railing was sensible. That distinction became important to me. Accepting that I was aging did not require accepting that I was incapable. Independence was not pretending I would never need help. It was having a voice in what help looked like. My plan for the house surprised even me. I decided to stay for at least another year. During that time, I would sort through 4 decades of belongings, make the ground floor easier to use, and learn what smaller homes were available near the center of town. If I sold, it would be on the open market, at a fair price, on a day I chose. I did not need 4 bedrooms to prove I still mattered. I did need my children to understand that the future was not an item they could order on my behalf. The repair table required protection too. With the church's help, Morris and I formed a small non-profit association. The tools and donations belonged to the program, not to me. We created a 5-person board that included 2 older volunteers, the church administrator, a local electrician, and Emma as a non-voting youth advisor. Kevin could not franchise it. I could not accidentally leave it tangled in my estate. It would survive all of us, provided Morris stopped using the good screwdrivers to open paint cans. "You're taking the fun out of retirement," he said. "You retired 12 years ago." "Exactly. I've had time to practice." 10 days before the birthday dinner, I invited Sharon and Kevin to my house. I cooked pot roast, which was ambitious but familiar. June's recipe called for a cup of red wine. I substituted beef stock and added too much pepper. The meal tasted respectable, not joyful. Sharon arrived with a salad and a new medication organizer I had not requested. Kevin brought the folder he had shown me at Sunday dinner. "Insurance inventory," he said, placing it beside my plate. I left it closed. We ate for several minutes. They talked about work. Sharon asked whether the new locks had been necessary. "Yes," I said. Kevin looked at her, then at me. I put down my fork. "Did you pay Oak Haven $7,500 from my account?" Sharon went still. Kevin leaned back. "Dad, we were going to explain," she said. "Did you?" "Yes, but it was a refundable hold. Good units are hard to get. We didn't want you to lose the option." "An option I did not request." "Because you refused to discuss it." "Refusing is a decision, Sharon." She folded her napkin into smaller and smaller squares. "You don't see what we see. The application says I wander. You drove past Emma's school twice when you were supposed to pick her up. That happened 8 years ago after they changed the entrance. It shows a pattern. 8 years is not a pattern. It is a marriage." Kevin exhaled impatiently. "This is getting emotional." "It became emotional when I found my keys in your coat." The room fell silent. Kevin's face changed, then recovered. "I found them near your driveway. I put them in my pocket so they wouldn't get lost." "And returned them to the hook after dinner?" "I forgot I had them." "You found my lost keys and forgot to tell the man everyone says is forgetful." He looked toward Sharon. She looked genuinely confused. "What is he talking about?" she asked. Kevin pushed his chair back slightly. "Nothing. Dad is turning a misunderstanding into some conspiracy." I looked at Sharon. "Did you know he took the blue ledger?" "No." "Did you know about the plan to turn this house into 4 furnished rentals?" All color left her face. She turned to Kevin. "What plan?" He looked at me with open anger now. "Emma showed you." "Answer your sister." Kevin stood and paced to the sink. "It was a concept. A possible investment. We keep the property in the family, Dad gets the care he needs, and the house generates income." "For whom?" Sharon asked. "For the company. Eventually for all of us." "You told me a young family wanted to buy it." Because you dismiss every business idea before hearing it. You used me. Kevin turned on her. You wanted him out of the house as much as I did. That sentence sat among us like another person. Sharon looked at me. She did not deny it. I asked Kevin about the ledger, the missing mail, the cabinet key, and the appointment. He admitted copying the property records. He claimed the mail had been gathered for safekeeping. He denied changing the appointment. He said he had taken the cabinet key because he wanted to understand the repair table's finances. You mean you wanted to own the story, I said. You're wasting something valuable in a church basement. People are not wasting their lives because you cannot invoice them. He pressed both hands against the counter. My company is in trouble. There it was. Morris had been right. Money was trying to become a secret covered. Kevin owed suppliers. 2 commercial clients had delayed payment, and he had borrowed against his equipment. An investor would save the business if Kevin could contribute property equity. My house was supposed to become that contribution. I was going to pay you back, he said. With money earned from a house you bought below value using equity you expected me to give you. It would have worked. For you. For the family. I heard my own father's voice in that phrase. For the family. It has covered many acts of generosity and almost as many acts of theft. Sharon began to cry quietly. I didn't know about the rentals. You knew about the application, I said. You wrote that I want her. You took my money. You changed my bank notices. I was afraid. Of what? Of finding you on the floor. Of another call in the middle of the night. Of doing this again. Her voice broke on the final word. For 3 years before June died, Sharon had been the child who came to appointments. She learned medication names, argued with insurers, brought casseroles, changed sheets, and sat with her mother when pain made conversation difficult. Kevin visited, but Sharon carried the calendar. I had thanked her. I had not understood what fear she took home. Mom refused help until everything was an emergency, she said. You're exactly the same. No, I said. You were so afraid I would become your mother that you stopped seeing your father. She covered her mouth. I wanted to comfort her. A father's hands remember that motion even when the child is 51. But comfort offered too soon can become another kind of silence. Fear explains what you did, I said. It does not make it right. Then I told them everything had been revoked. The bank access. The power of attorney. Any authority over the house. I told Kevin I had copies of his plan and would not transfer the property. I told Sharon the Oak Haven deposit was being returned. Cancel the birthday presentation, I said. Tell the guests the plans changed. That is your chance to end this privately. Kevin laughed without humor. You're going to humiliate us over a misunderstanding? No. I am giving you 10 days not to humiliate yourselves. Sharon stared at her folded napkin. People already know. Invitations went out. Oak Haven arranged everything. Then sent another message. Neither answered. When they left, the folder beside my plate remained unopened. I carried it to the workshop and examined it. It was not an insurance inventory. The first pages authorized Kevin to negotiate a private sale of my home. Buried at the back was a statement that I was signing voluntarily after consulting family because of declining capacity. There were yellow tabs beside each signature line. That folder became the last item in my birthday envelope. 10 days later, I walked into Oak Haven carrying the cake. Sharon had not canceled the presentation. For most of the dinner, she avoided me. Kevin behaved as if our conversation had never happened. He shook hands, told jokes, and introduced himself to 2 men I later learned were potential investors. The room was decorated with photographs from my life. There was June in her wedding dress. Kevin on my shoulders at the county fair. Sharon holding the first invoice from Mercer Appliance Service. Emma at age 6, asleep in a laundry basket at the shop. It was strange to see proof that we had loved one another arranged around a room where my children planned to betray me. Morris sat near the back. Emma was beside him, rigid with anger. You want me to stop this? She whispered when I passed. No, I said. I asked them to stop it. After the meal, Sharon took the microphone. That returned us to the moment where this story began. She told the room I had experienced confusion. She announced my move to Oak Haven. She showed the farewell slide and said the house was being transferred. Then people applauded. I placed the cake on the side table. Kevin stepped forward. Keeping Dad's legacy in the family matters to us, he said. so I'm proud to share a first look at what Mercer House will become. The next slide showed the 4 furnished suites. This was the surprise Sharon had not expected. Her head turned sharply toward him. Kevin continued speaking about preserving the brick exterior, modernizing the interior, and creating a living tribute to the Mercer work ethic. On the screen, June's pear tree had been replaced by 6 parking spaces. That small detail broke something open in me. I walked toward the front. Kevin raised a hand as if to pause me. "Dad, give me 1 minute. You've had 5 weeks." I took the microphone. The room settled. I had prepared a speech. I did not use it. "Thank you for coming," I said. "And thank you for applauding. Most of you did not know you were applauding a lie." Someone near the window coughed. Sharon whispered, "Dad, please." I looked at her. "That is what I have been saying." I told the room I was not moving to Oak Haven. I told them I had never agreed to sell my house. I explained that I had completed a medical evaluation and a driving assessment, both of which found me capable of making my own decisions. I did not describe every missing object. I did not show the photograph of Kevin's coat. Those facts belonged to the family and, if necessary, a courtroom, not to birthday guests searching for dessert. But I held up the folder. I was asked to sign papers authorizing a private sale at below market value. The papers also stated that I had declining capacity. I did not sign them. Kevin moved toward me. Morris stood from his chair. Kevin stopped. "This is a family disagreement," Kevin said. "It was," I replied. "You turned it into a public announcement." Then I said what I most needed them, and perhaps myself, to hear. "I am 74 years old. I forget names. I need brighter lights than I used to. My knees make sounds that should require a mechanic. Someday I may need more help than I need today. But age does not make my no temporary. Grief does not make my home available. Concern does not become consent simply because it comes from my children." Nobody moved. I pointed toward the photographs around the room. "These pictures are real. We were a family before this mistake, and I hope we will be one after it. But love without respect becomes management. I will not be managed out of my own life." Sharon was crying. Kevin's face had gone hard. I told them my actual plan. I would remain in my house while making reasonable safety improvements. If and when I sold, the decision would be mine. My legal and financial arrangements were now independent. The Thursday repair table had become a community nonprofit and would continue whether or not I led it. "There is cake," I finished. "It has 1 candle missing, which I consider evidence of excellent judgment by the bakery. Anyone who came to celebrate my birthday is welcome to stay. The farewell has been cancelled." For 1 long second, nothing happened. Then Margaret Lowe, the woman from the Oak Haven puzzle table, began to clap. Not loudly. Just 4 deliberate claps. Morris joined her. Emma did next. Soon most of the room was standing, though I had not wanted another round of applause. This one felt different. The first applause had been for my surrender. The second was for my voice. Kevin left before the cake was cut. Sharon remained by the screen, surrounded by photographs of a father she had nearly reduced to a list of risks. I did not go to her. Not yet. The morning after my birthday, the house was unusually quiet. A few paper plates sat beside the sink. Someone had sent home half the cake. The writing on it now read, "Happy Birth," because Morris had taken the corner with the remaining letters. At 9, Sharon knocked. She did not have a key anymore. That mattered to both of us. When I opened the door, she held the medication organizer in one hand and a cardboard box in the other. "May I come in?" she asked. It was the first real question she had asked me in months. Inside the box were my missing bank notices, copies of the Oak Haven forms, and a folder of notes she had kept about me. She had recorded every missed call, repeated story, cancelled plan, and complained about sleep. On separate pages were notes from June's final years. The 2 sets looked almost identical because Sharon had been searching for the same ending. "I kept waiting for proof," she said. "After Mom, I thought if I noticed early enough, I could control what happened. So everything became proof." She nodded. "Did Kevin ask you to exaggerate the application?" "He said they would not hold the unit unless the needs sounded urgent. I told myself the details were basically true." "Were they?" "No. That word cost her something." She also admitted changing the account to paperless and using my money for the deposit. She had not known Kevin took the keys, ledger, or repair table documents. She had believed his buyer was a young family until dinner. "I am sorry," she said. Not the kind where I explain it again. "I am sorry." I believed her remorse. Trust was more complicated. "I love you," I said. "And for a while, you will have to knock." She cried then, not neatly. I put my arms around her because boundaries do not require cruelty. Kevin did not apologize. His attorney called Naomi and described everything as a failed family investment discussion. Naomi replied with a demand that he return the cabinet key, destroy the copied records, and sign an agreement acknowledging he had no interest in the house. He signed after 2 weeks. His company lost the investor. By January, he sold part of the business and took a project manager job with another contractor. I did not celebrate that. Watching your child meet consequences is not victory, even when the consequences are deserved. For 4 months, we barely spoke. Then one Thursday, Kevin appeared in the church basement carrying a broken stand mixer. He placed it on the intake table. "Customer says it stalls under load," he told Morris. Morris looked at me. I looked at Kevin. "Did you fill out a card?" I asked. He glanced toward Emma's tablet. "I don't know how." Neither does Morris. Somehow he remains alive. Kevin almost smiled. He filled out the form and waited. When we opened the mixer, the gear assembly was stripped. He handed me the correct socket before I asked. For 20 minutes, we worked without discussing the house. Finally he said, "I was drowning, Dad." I kept my eyes on the mixer. "Then you should have asked for a rope. You tried to stand on me." He nodded once. "I'm sorry." It was not a complete apology. He still spoke as if desperation had made his choices inevitable. But it was a beginning, and beginnings are usually smaller than people expect. I told him I would meet him for breakfast the following week. Public place. 1 hour. No business proposals. We did that for months. Some breakfasts were awkward. At one, he blamed Sharon for starting the Oak Haven plan. I left money for my coffee and went home. The next week he arrived early and did not blame anyone. Trust did not return like a light switching on. It returned like an old radio signal, faint, uneven, sometimes lost in static, but clearer when we stopped striking the cabinet. 1 year after the birthday dinner, I was still living in the brick house. The hallway had brighter lights. The bathroom had a grab bar. A woman named Tessa came twice a month to help with the cleaning I had begun pretending not to notice. I wore an emergency button when I worked alone, though I removed it for photographs because vanity survives every medical recommendation. Sharon visited on Saturdays. She always knocked. Sometimes she asked whether I wanted help with groceries. Sometimes I said yes. Sometimes I said no. She learned that both answers could be loving. She also started attending a support group for former family caregivers. One afternoon she told me she had spent years believing vigilance was the same as love. "Vigilance kept Mom safe," I said. And then I forgot how to turn it off. We were quiet for a while. "I should have helped you carry that fear," I said. She looked at me. "You were carrying your own." That may have been the first conversation in which neither of us tried to win. Kevin repaid the Oak Haven administrative fee, though Sharon had authorized the deposit. He said it was the least he could do. He did not ask about the house again. He came to the repair table twice a month. At first, Morris counted the screwdrivers before Kevin left. Eventually he stopped counting. Emma completed a documentary project about repair culture. She interviewed people at our folding tables, not about me, but about the objects they refused to discard. Dolores brought back the old lamp and talked about reading beside it while her husband slept. A veteran named Carl brought a clock his daughter had given him in 1983. Margaret from Oak Haven brought a fan with a rattling cage and corrected everyone's grammar. Emma called the project Useful Things. At the screening, she dedicated it to June, who kept records of what lasted. I cried in the dark, which is one advantage of theaters. That autumn, the pear tree produced more fruit than it had in years. Kevin helped me gather it. Sharon made preserves using June's recipe. The three of us stood in the kitchen stepping around one another, falling into movements learned decades earlier. Nothing was exactly as it had been. That was all right. People talk about forgiveness as if it returns a family to its original condition. It does not. A repaired thing carries evidence. A seam. A new screw. A place where the finish no longer matches. The goal is not to make damage invisible. The goal is to make the thing useful and honest again. I eventually decided I would sell the house when I turned 77. Not because anyone had forced me. Because the stairs were becoming tiresome, the yard deserved younger knees, and I found a small one-story home 3 blocks from the church. When I told Sharon and Kevin, neither offered an opinion. "You can ask questions," I said. Sharon smiled. "Do you want us to?" "A few. Sensible ones." Kevin asked whether I wanted help evaluating offers. "I have an agent and an attorney," I said. "But you can help me repair the basement step." He did. The house sold to a couple with 2 young children. They loved the pear tree and promised nothing about keeping it, which was honest. Before closing, I walked through each empty room. In the kitchen, the marks showing Sharon's and Kevin's heights were still inside the doorway. I had considered cutting out that piece of wood. Instead, I left it. The house had witnessed our best years and one of our worst. It did not need to become a monument to either. On my final morning there, Emma helped me carry the blue ledger to the car. "Are you sad?" she asked. "Yes." "Are you sure?" I looked back at the brick walls, the new owner's boxes, and the pear tree moving in the October wind. "Those are different questions," I said. "I can be sad and sure." She took my arm, not because I needed support, but because she loved me. That difference matters too. I am 78 now. I still work Thursdays. I still forget names. Last week I searched for my glasses while wearing them, which gave Morris enough joy to last until spring. My children worry about me. I let them. Worry is part of love. Control does not have to be. There is a photograph from my 74th birthday on the wall of my new home. It was taken after the presentation ended. I am cutting the cake. Emma is beside me. Morris is stealing frosting. Sharon stands at the edge of the frame, uncertain but present. Kevin is absent. For a long time I thought that absence ruined the picture. Now I understand the photograph told the truth about that day. Families are not measured by whether everyone fits neatly inside a frame. They are measured by whether there remains a path back into it, and whether the people inside have learned to make room without asking anyone to disappear. I spent most of my life repairing machines. Machines are straightforward. A failed belt does not pretend it broke for your own good. A burned wire does not call itself concern. People are harder. But the principle is not entirely different. First, disconnect the power that is causing harm. Then identify what actually broke. Replace what cannot be trusted. Preserve what still has value. Test the repair slowly. And never confuse making something work again with making it exactly as it was. My children did not save me from old age. I did not defeat it either. We learned something quieter and more useful. My life would change. My body would change. My home would change. One day I might need help with choices I can now make alone. But while my voice was mine, it deserved to be heard. And love, real love, would knock before entering.